What up, Duck fans? Thanks for tuning in to yet another epi of Etem UP, and we have a very, very special guest in SoCal's finest. I'm saying SoCal's finest.
Let's go.
Chase DeLeo.
Let's go.
Chase, thanks for just joining the show. And this is I'm really looking forward to this one because the main topic, the main point of the conversation is maybe if I'm a player, hey, I want to make it to the show, or I want to make it to the highest levels of hockey in general. What is it going to take maybe from a mentality standpoint, preparation, and if all the parents of players, if you have either a son or daughter, hey, as a parent, what can I do to maybe better position my son or daughter to best put them in a position to make it to the highest level of hockey, whether it's the Olympics for, the women's game or D1 college hockey, of course, obviously for males, NHL, Olympics as well. So I was almost taken aback by, I had one player instance and I had one parent instance of the player came up to me and just, hey, do you think I'm ready for playing in the Western League? And I thought to myself, I'm like, why are you asking me? You should be the one saying, hey, I'm ready to go, right? Like, why is it up to me? It's all about the player or for the parent too. Same kind of question. It was like, hey, son was a goalie and hey, is my goalie ready for, he was actually talking about the USPHL. Hey, do you think my son's ready to tend to in one of these teams in the USPHL? I'm like, that's not up to me. Like, why are you asking me? I mean, it's got to be up to the player. So, I mean, do you want to touch on that dynamic of preparation leading up to a team you want to make, or can you touch on that?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, thanks for having me in the studio. Always a pleasure. For me, as you know, being from Southern California, I actually grew up watching you and Bo Bennett, and these guys were really what drove me and motivated me. And for me personally, just to see you guys do it before me, kind of, being from California gave me that hope. And luckily enough for me, my family, we have a plumbing supply wholesale business, not super involved in the sports world. So my parents just were always kind of there for me as support and never really told me what was wrong or what was right. And just always kind of let me make my decisions, but were there for me. Kind of learned together, I guess, going through all these camps in the summers. Obviously, I had to make that decision as well, going back to the Western Hockey League, or if I was going to go to the national program and go to college, it was very tough. You're 14 years old for me at the time, having to make a pretty big life-changing decision. And like I said, luckily enough for my parents, they were just so supportive and didn't really lead me in any direction, kind of let me make my own mind up. And were obviously there with me in Portland when I decided to go there, and there and with me in Ann Arbor, when I went to that top 40 national development team camp. And like you said, I think it's nice for a kid to have an open mind and make a choice by himself and have that guidance. But that being said, it's like you need to have in your mind, you can't have any second guessing, especially from California. My mom told me, Chase, there's a 1% chance you're going to make it to the NHL being from California. And I looked at her and I said, well, I'm going to be that 1%, I'm going to take that chance. And by me taking that chance at the time, I have a late birthday, which is a late draft. It just made more sense for me at the time. I went to Portland, saw Ryan Johansson, saw Nito Niederreiter, saw Sven Barchi. You go down the list and I'm like, I'm on the ice with these guys that are already drafted. They already played World Juniors. I'm like, let's go. This is my decision. I kind of looked at my parents and I said, I want to have no regrets when I look back at it. I'm just going to just go for it. And, that was a decision I made. There's no wrong or right decisions. And at the time, that's kind of what I went with. And I enjoyed every second.
I love that answer because you literally hit on everything we're going to maybe dive a little bit deeper into on this episode. And then just talking about that 1% and just going back to the original question of you just got to want it. And there's only, I think it's probably less than 1%. You mentioned 1%. What the exact, but it is, that narrow of margins to make it to the highest levels. And you just, you can't, and Willie Desjardins, and I probably mentioned it on this show before, is that feeling of I won't be denied,
Yeah.
right? Like just I will sacrifice everything, time with friends.
Great.
You know, and a story that I have is what it took for me to get to workout when I was 13, 14. I worked out at the original Gold's Gym in Venice Beach, California. Yeah. So it would take me, and I'd probably wake up at around 6 a.m. at the time. So I literally 5 minutes. It was up at 6, out the door at probably 6:05. It took me a half hour to rollerblade from my house to the Blue Line, downtown Long Beach. It took a half hour from the Blue Line to the Green Line station. I think it was Rosa Parks. You hopped off the Blue Line. You got on the Green Line. It was another half hour to LAX Aviation. And then you have to hop on the big blue bus for 45 minutes, right down Lincoln. And God knows what I saw. Rolling through Lincoln Boulevard, Venice Beach at 13, 14. And then I had to hop off the bus, rollerblade to the Gold's Gym, which is like 15-minute rollerblade. So we're talking 2 hours, 45 minutes before the workout even began. Yep. Crushed the 2.5 hour workout. And then you had that 2.5 hour commute back. And that was at the time Monday through Friday. And then my parents would drive me on the Saturdays. But I mean, that was a lot of time where in the summer, your buddies are just fooling around.
Yeah, big time.
Right? You know, up to no good. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to, you know, and I think you can definitely make the argument that things are different here. And even Bo Bennett's case at the same time, I mean, he stayed till his senior year and he would have the late birth year, kind of like you. Yeah. So he fell in that next draft, but he stayed in California, went his draft year to Penticton, lit it up and was still a first rounder, right? So when parents think about, hey, you know, I want to go here, it's going to get me here. It's just, if you're good enough, if you're good enough, you work hard enough, people find you. It doesn't matter if you're here or Timbuktu, seriously. Yeah. No, seriously. And so I love that point that you made of preparation. Hey, there should be zero doubts in the player's mind, parent mind. It's, hey, I'm going in, I'm making this team. There is no, you know, do I think you're just opening up the door for others to come in and swoop your spot. Like Absolutely. You have one goal in mind. It's the first second of the tryout or, you know, whatever, first day of training camp, whatever the case may be. You have to be the guy or you have to be the girl. Like you have to be dominant. And it starts with that mentality heading into these things. No different than in a shift in the NHL, wherever you're playing. Like someone's going to take your spot if you're not dialed and just have one thing in mind, and that's just being the guy or being the girl. Talk about roller hockey. Us being from SoCal. Yep. Did you start roller? Did you kind of go back and forth as you were young and coming up here in the rinks in SoCal?
Yeah. First off, just touch on your story. You know, I feel like all that extra work that you put in and you know you're doing it when nobody else really does, it just kind of gives you that extra jam and that confidence, you know, knowing all that work that you're putting in, it's got to pay off, you know, whether you're working in the dark or you're posting, everybody's seeing it, you know, if you have hype, that's great, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day, you know, when you show up, nothing else matters. So I just want to touch on that. And like I said, I got Against All Odds tattooed on me. It was one of my first tattoos, you know, just kind of touching on our story. Now it's just a good reminder when I look down, you know, it's like, you know, I just never want to be denied. And even still, you know, I see you outside of the locker room last training camp, you know, in Anaheim, right after the preseason games. And I said, you know, like, why not me? You know, why not me? And you almost have to just tell yourself that, whether you're tricking yourself or you're tricking your mind or not, you have to have that belief. And if you don't have that self-belief, it's not going to happen for you. And going back to the roller hockey, that's where it all got started. A guy named Michael Worth was my next door neighbor, had season tickets actually to the Kings. And he was always out in the street, you know, with one of those orange roller balls and slapping it around, and had me come over one day, hitting the ball around in the street. And sure enough, his dad's best friends with Bob Hartley at the time when he was coaching the Colorado Avalanche, and he was in town, and they actually took me to a Kings game that same day, and got to go down to the locker room, and I'm seeing all these guys, you know, Joe Sakic and Peter Forsberg and Patrick Waugh, and I'm like, oh my God, all I wanted at the time was a stick, you know, I'm just dying to grab a stick from one of these guys. And since then, it's like I got this VHS tape of the Colorado Avalanche on their quest to the cup, and I watched that same VHS every single day. I sat in front of my little TV, watched it over and over again until it literally was just memorized in my head pretty much. And like you said, so I definitely started off playing roller hockey. I played for the OC Blades, coast to coast, and Huntington Beach had the best chicken teriyaki bowls in the world. Never forget that. RIP coast to coast. Still got our banners probably in the dumpster back there somewhere. But
shout out to Coast for the bomb food.
yeah, it's so good. And no, it's never ending. My poor parents, when you're going through it at the time, you're just playing, you're hanging out with your buddies, you're having a good time, and you're not really focused on how much work it takes to get you to the rink, like you touched on, just getting to the gym. And my poor parents, like, every single day they go to work, take me to hockey, pick me up from hockey, rinse, repeat. It's the same thing. And for me, as roller hockey was no different. It's like the travel was still there. Like every weekend or whatever, there's a tournament somewhere, and my parents are flying me somewhere, driving me somewhere. And I still have fun playing roller hockey. I actually played Narch a few years back at the pro division. I had a few of my buddies. I had Brennan Lemieux, and I had AJ Greer play with me in this past one. And AJ Greer is a pretty gritty guy. He likes to chop it up out there, and he wasn't down for the roller hockey game. He's not a California guy, so he was getting a little pissed off out there at some of the plays, holding the puck and ragging the puck, just chasing the puck around. So it's pretty funny to see other hockey guys kind of transition to roller when they're not familiar with it.
Yeah, and talk about some maybe life lessons, and I want to give my own example real quick and tee it up for you. In a sense, I remember there was one practice where, so this was a little bit after my roller days. I started at roller when I was 4, probably 2.5, maybe 3 years. Maybe I dabbled in both for a while, ice and roller. Yeah. Started in-house ice when I was, say, about 6. And right around that time, 6, 7, 8, maybe it was into squirt. I played my first travel squirt double B, I think it was, or no, excuse me, it was Mite double B. So it might have been the squirt year. It was at a summer clinic, and there's this really good Russian kid. I want to say his name was Nico. He had a greasy mullet, and you got a nice mullet. My son's actually rocking the mullet now. It looks pristine. Yeah. There was one time where mullets were somewhat frowned upon, right?
Dicey, definitely dicey. They're back.
So they're back now. But this was the time where it's like, God, that thing is great. Like, what's going on at the home light right now?
Sus, a little sus.
So long story short, he could back it up with his game. He was unbelievable. Just once again, small Russian kid, greasy mullet, sick hands. But it was at the end of one practice, and this is like a weekly, summer, once a week skills, maybe a shooting, stick handling type deal. And we did a little back skate at the end, maybe 5-10 minutes. And he was a kid that was always talked about. Everyone knew he was the best out there on the ice. When we got into these mountains, of course they're called, right? Yeah. It's goal line, blue line, back, goal line, red line, back, goal line, bar, blue line, and back, and then goal line, and back. He probably shaved a foot off each line. He was stopping premature about a foot and a half. Maybe it was even 2. He was beating. So he was probably first. I was second in each line. And when we finished the whole thing, maybe we went through, I can't remember specifically, but maybe we did a couple mountains and he beat me each and every time. I know he was cheating. That led me to cheat. And, once again, he was fast. He was going fast. He was in first place each rep. And then, I was right there, but I felt myself, in order to at least tie or try to, beat him, I had to stop short. Right. Foot and a half, 2 feet, whatever he was doing. I think I still ended up losing regardless, but I've never seen my dad so mad. He called me, whatever, the coach talked, I blew the whistle down, coach spoke, we broke and went off to the locker rooms. Before I entered the locker room, my dad pulled me aside. He's never really yelled. This is the only time he's yelled. He said, "Don't you ever do that again."
Yeah, I love that.
And it stuck with me. Like right from that point on, never shaved off anything. There was no cutting the corners, high-low drills. There was no cutting that first strong side dot. Like I was always 5 feet above. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I always made sure that I went above the dots on high lows or mountains. I stopped on the line. So from that moment on, never cheated. Right. I look at that as just compounding interest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like every time in a negative way, like anytime you cut a foot off a mountain, like think about how much that adds up, right?
And
I mean, that's a foot.
and it doesn't lie, you know, like you can't hide those little things, especially when you get up to this level. It's the little percentages of the difference. So, like you said, that's such an important lesson. I think it's like no matter what, and it comes back to you're only hurting yourself in the end.
And you know, you mentioned your mom. You mentioned your mom. Hey, you know, Chase, there's only 1%. So she lobbed that up to you. You had a great response. Is there anything, whether your parents, from an advice perspective, they had that you know, was passed down to you at any moment in time, or was there an experience where you look back now and just touching back on my story? It's like, where's that kid? Where's that little Russian kid with the greasy mullet now? You know, I would remember his name. I don't remember his name without seeing it again. But if I saw it again, I was like, okay, I know that would never be, you know.
Probably still has the mullet.
Yeah, probably. He's on Lincoln Boulevard still. So, like, can you think to a story that it's like, wow, I don't remember that kid, or there's something that, you know, you did, someone else was cutting the corners, or just more advice that your parents, you know, laid down to you?
Yeah, it's a great story, and I think that's I mean, it still sticks with me today. You know, I can relate to that. You know, not cutting corners because you're only hurting yourself in the end. And I think for me, you know, I actually started out playing goalie, which is crazy. I mean, I'm undersized guy. You know, at the time I was 4 years old when I started at the Norwalk Knights. Down in Norwalk, there was a little rink there right by a dairy farm. I knew I was getting close to the rink because it absolutely just stunk. You know, I could smell the cows.
Shout out to the Norwalk Knights.
Yeah, and I had a Russian goalie coach. His name was German, and I don't even think he was a goalie coach.
I remember him. I remember German. Yeah.
He used to ride his bike to the rink, actually. And
I didn't know he was a goalie. I remember the name. I didn't know he was a goalie.
So I was just a little goalie. I was number 19 in a net, though, you know, because I loved Joe Sakic, so it looked pretty weird. I had an Avalanche jersey, a little goalie, and I couldn't understand him, you know, but he would just always be screaming at me, like telling me to drop into my butterfly and screaming at me. And I'm like, you know, I don't think I'm not cut out to be a goalie, you know. So I switched pretty quickly to be a forward, and I think ever since then, I mean, I just ran with it. I just stuck with it, and I mean, I didn't play other sports. You know, I think it's important for parents to put their kids in other sports. You know, it's good to make them an all around athlete and very athletic, but for me, I didn't have time to do anything else. You know, I think I played t-ball maybe for, you know, a few days, but like I was at that rink, as you know, like every single day grinding. There was no other choice for me. There was, oh no, maybe I'll play baseball or maybe I'll play football. It was like, no, it was hockey. Since I was 3, 4 years old, there was no other choice for me. So, you know, it was not like I had really another option in my mind. That was what, you know, I already had that made up in my head. And I don't know. I think it was important that I kind of, you know, learned on my own and made that decision. Like I said, you know, it's like I found out pretty quickly I didn't want to be a goalie. And then obviously I transitioned into ice, into a forward and kind of just stuck with it, had a little more fun scoring goals and going to these tournaments. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's exciting. This is my dream, you know, for me to be able to play for the Anaheim Ducks, you know. It's like to be in this room and to be sitting with you. It's like life happens so fast. And, you know, I look back at, you know, when we were little and now we're here sitting, you know, I used to watch you playing. I'd go to stay after my practice, you know, just to see you out there playing and, you know, and just giving me that hope and that little light, you know, that it can be done. And I think it's just cool to kind of come full circle. And it's been a cool journey. And I'm excited to keep it going.
Appreciate that. Give me some bumps, bro. Once again, touching on that, and I have once again, I'll
Oh, actually, sorry. I'll add on to that. I'll add on to your point about when I was so I played for the LA Hockey Club, LA Select, and we were a pretty dominant powerhouse. We were the group of the 1995s. We had the same team under Sandy Gasso for about 7 years. I think we won 3 national championships, and you know, it was get a lot of points, play a lot, and like I said, then I decided to go to Portland and play for the Winterhawks, and I have a late birthday, so I'm 15 years old, still got a cage, and I'm in the equipment room, and I can't wear a visor yet because I'm too young yet to be 16. So getting the cage put on, and Travis Green, just announced coach, obviously, Ottawa, came around the corner, and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, just want you to know, from here on out, nothing is going to be given to you. Everything is earned." And that stuck to me. That's all he needed to say, as a 14, 15-year-old kid coming from California, all of a sudden starting in the Western Hockey League, hearing that, I was a little bit taken back. I was kind of like, whoa, I just came back after winning, three, USA Hockey National championships. And then to hear him say that and kind of uh, just, I just took that in, and even to this day, you got to work for everything. And just to touch on your message, that was something that I've kept my entire life, since you said that to me. I thought that was super helpful and super motivating and so true, So I appreciate Travis Green for kind of putting that in my head and keeping that with me.
And him, even at the time, was this renowned coach, right?
Right.
He wasn't just some Joe Schmo, middle of the mall coach. I mean, he was at that time, there's a reason why he quickly escalated in the ranks of coaching the National Hockey League. And a lot of times those short, simple, sweet messages just go the furthest.
Right.
And touching back maybe prior to the Portland day, I want to get in on that decision between college and juniors in a second, but were you ever cut from any teams,
Yes.
growing up? Maybe the post-goalie era, maybe leading up to just Winter Hawks time?
Yeah, definitely. Like we do those USA Hockey festivals every summer, whether it was in Rochester or wherever, you're bunked up with four guys in a room and playing games. There's scouts there. And I think, so when I went to that 40 camp, what was, what were you talking about?
The cuts, what, Portland Winterhawks? What,
Yeah,
anything?
cuts.
If you were cut anytime between.
So I went to the USA camp. It was the under 18. I was and we're in this big room, the big cafeteria room, and
packed in like sardines.
Exactly. I'm sitting with all my buddies, and they have the list of who made the Ivan Alinka, the U18, the USA team, going blah 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 blah. Get to the bottom. No, know my name, and I didn't hear myself. And I'm sitting around, with all my buddies, and I just felt like embarrassed. I felt bad. I'm like, how could this happen? I felt like I had a pretty good camp, and like my heart was broken. I've never been that low before. I just was like, I wanted to play World Juniors. I want to represent USA. I want to play with my buddies, that I'm at all these festivals and tournaments with. And not only like did I not make the team, it was announced in front of everyone while I was sitting there. And I was just so embarrassed, I was sad. And, it was a long walk. It was a long walk back to the dorms, let me tell you, with all my buddies that made the team, at the time. And, we fast forward, and all of a sudden, I'm at freaking World Junior camp, and I wasn't going to be denied. That all I could replay in my head was that me sitting in that cafeteria with all my buddies and not making that under 18 Ivan Alinka team, and I just kind of, I wouldn't even really call it a chip on my shoulder, but I guess you could, and I kind of just carried that with me, and even still, and I ended up making the World Juniors team. I told my parents, this is what I want. I'm not going to be denied no matter what. And I feel like at the time it wasn't super popular for Canadian Hockey League players to make that team, as and it's a lot of the program guys and a lot of college guys, and I was drafted by a Canadian team. Winnipeg drafted me, and I was kind of getting little jabs about that, being drafted to a Canadian team. Like I picked that, and sure enough, it's I'm sitting on that, hearing the USA national anthem play at the World Juniors, and I'm looking around in Montreal, and I think that was a pretty cool moment for me. It's like I proved to myself that I could do it, and I don't know. I think that was a pretty defining moment in my life and in my career.
And that relates to, of course, everything we've been talking about here. But for the parent that asked me that question, just, hey, is my son in that case ready to make this league? Or the player, hey, am I? No, you set out, I won't be denied mentality. That's what you have to have. But furthermore, there was players that made that Ivan Halinka team that don't even come close to having the career that you've had thus far, right? So it's like, even before the whole World Juniors and making that team, it's like, whatever happens in that moment, there's always that next day. And I feel when I'm, I still work one-on-one group sessions at Lakewood Ice, and oftentimes I'm asked by parents, certain things. And a lot of what I ask is, hey, I need to make this team next year. Hey, I'm going to the USHL, pre-draft camp. I need to, and Joel Ward had a certain mentality of, I'm not going to be denied, but I don't have to do anything by next season, right? He cracked the NHL at what, 28, 29? Yeah. Derek Ryan, another guy, 28, 29, has a cup of coffee in Europe before coming over here, and he's still playing. And Tim Thomas and Jokic, at least he played tier 3. He played in the USBHL. So there's not many stories, but there's certainly a number of stories that it doesn't matter about, where you're at now. It's having that mindset of, I'm going to make it. I don't care how long it takes, but I'm going to make it. This is what I got to do to make it, and make sure you have your own game plan, of course, for yourself. But, you talk about the 1% or less than of making it to the highest levels. And part of that is just having this belief that it's not going to be overnight. It's going to be a process. And how many people don't fit into that 1%? Maybe you can cut off right with that argument, 40% of people who just think so short term and not the big picture. And I just relating to everything we're talking about, I just think having that wide window combined with not being denied, I think is the perfect combination of doing exactly what you just did. You learned from it. You remember that feeling, went out and conquered it, which is fantastic, making that world junior
and for
team.
me, it's like, and for parents out there, I'm 28 years old now, and I'm still trusting that process. I still show up to training camp. I don't have a ton of NHL games, but that's still my goal. It's still my mindset. I show up in September, ready to go. I'm going to make that team, if it happens, whatever I'm supposed to be, I know like it's going to happen. And that's, wherever my feet are, it's where I belong. So, just going to keep having that mindset and that belief. And, I got a great support system. I got a great family, and I get to spend a lot of time with them. And that's so important to me as well. Life is short, and like you said, we sacrifice so much by, leaving home and like left home at 14 years old. You miss out on so much, whether it's grandma's birthday or little things, So, for me, it's like, it's so nice to be around for that and to be able to, I just want to make them proud, after how much they sacrifice for me. And I'm still not satisfied. I'm still working for that goal. Like we talked about, outside of that locker room last training camp, and, still trusting that process, baby.
Well, before we give a little shout out to it's got to be top 3 all-time bobbleheads. We'll get to it in a second. I think we've talked about a lot of juicy stuff leading up to this last point. Being from California, maybe the kicker is being from anywhere, but you decided to go the junior route. So did I. Mine happened after the development program. For you, what made you, whether this is general, worldwide, why the Western League route or Southern California? We are kind of at the forefront of that conversation being from California. Like 100%. We are, hey, college, Western League. Why did you choose Western League? For the parents that have maybe some skepticism over anything, whether it's college, whether it's junior, why did you pick the junior route being from California?
Yeah, that's a great question. Definitely not an easy answer. It took a lot of time and a lot of thinking, not only with me, but with my whole crew. For me, it's like, I was just like every other kid doing the Omaha Lancers camp at El Segundo, doing the USHL festivals and everything. And, I actually went to Denver with Eric Comrie, and we were sitting on Wozdecky, who was the coach at the time, and offered us both full scholarships. And we looked at each other. We're like, yes, we're going to Denver together. We're best friends. This is it, Next week later, I get drafted to Portland. He gets drafted to Tri-City. Then we're head-to-head, absolute rivals trying to kill each other. I'm trying to snipe him as many times as possible. Portland versus Tri-City is a huge rivalry, and it happened quick. But, for me, Matt Bardsley, he was the head scout in Portland, and he took me out to brunch, my mom, my dad, and myself. And I think just that first getting to see Portland and, Ryan Johansson being there, he was always messaging me on MySpace at the time, he's like, or Facebook, he's like, he's like, come to Portland, come to Portland, come to Portland, come to Portland. So then I actually get there and, and he's like an older brother to me, and I see the way he was handling himself. And like I said, all these other top NHL prospects and being on the ice with them. And, I just had, like, I think I had a smile on my face the entire time I was there. And, I just told my parents, with the way that I have a late birthday, and I just thought it would make more sense for me being in Portland the entire time, play World Juniors, hopefully then get drafted, rather than whether I go to the USHL for a couple of years, then transition to college, then hopefully get drafted. For me and Portland, there was a Long Beach, JetBlue, Long Beach to Portland, 2-hour flight.
Shout
direct.
out JetBlue.
Shout out JetBlue, Long Beach. Yep. My parents got to fly. It was super easy for my parents. Maybe if another team in the Western League that wasn't the Portland Winterhawks drafted me, might be having a different conversation right now. Just the timing of everything, and obviously still being in the U.S. and super close to home, being away from home for the first time, living with the Billet family. It was super cool for my parents to just be able to hop on a JetBlue flight 2 hours and be able to come see me, if I was getting homesick, because that's a pretty big ask, like I couldn't even do sleepovers at my buddies' houses in California. I was such a homebody, and I still am a homebody, to be honest. But then all of a sudden, I'm packing my bags and I'm in a different state. It happens very, very fast. And I think my mom still hasn't gotten over, it's like, it's the same thing every year. You come home for a couple months in the summer and then boom, you're gone. It's not an easy career path that we chose, obviously, but highs and lows of everything, I think. And I don't regret any decisions. I think, I was in the WHL finals almost every single year that I was in Portland, which is, all you could ask for is getting that experience and playing alongside, the world's best at such a young age, and pushing yourself every day in practice was a tryout. I felt, and even still now, I'm 28 years old and capping the San Diego Gulls, and I still feel like every day is a tryout. I just have that mindset, because I've never, I've had to earn everything. I've never really had a ton of hype or anything like that around me. So everybody wants your place, and we're all replaceable at the end of the day. So I don't want to lose what I have, and this is what keeps me motivated and keeps me working every single day for more.
You packed a lot in that answer right there, which is phenomenal. And one of the reasons why I chose the Western League route is a lot like just your decision, and it's the right situation, right? And maybe if it wasn't Medicine Hat, once again, maybe I would have been a college guy, right? Yeah. And for me, it was Willie Desjardins and how many connections he had at the time, and guys that have been drafted. Tyler Ennis before me, first round pick.
Tyler Ennis, I used to watch all his Medicine Hat highlights.
Unbelievable, 6-goal game.
Yeah.
But whether it's Lupul or Bouwmeester, and Portland's got a long list of guys who made it to the show. And you were at a time there in Portland where Bershi and Ross, even Brad Ross was big time at one point.
Brad Ross taught me some serious lessons, because he played a pretty gritty, hard game, and being a kid from California playing roller hockey, I wasn't really exposed to that. So shout out to Brad Ross, because it used to be pretty scary in the Western Hockey League when I was 15 years old. You never really knew what was going to happen behind the play. So taught you to be ready, stay ready.
Nino Niederreiter and Johansson, as you mentioned, and your teams were loaded, that's for sure. Appreciate that answer. That was unbelievable. Let's talk about this bobblehead. Once again, top 3 all time. I haven't, of course, seen every bobblehead ever made, but I have this just vision that this is the at least top 3. Might even be penciled in at number 1. Just talk about this real quick. The ins and outs of it. The donkey, Hansel.
Yeah, Hansel.
And just touch on this real quick.
Yeah, quickly, California cowboy, born and raised Lamar, California. Got some animals. This is my donkey, Hansel. He's my brother. He's 30 years old, which is 2 years older than me. So I've had him my entire life. Wouldn't know what to do without him.
So he's the vet. You're the rookie.
He's the vet. Yeah, taught me a lot. He is very stubborn. Keeps me in my place, but It was a super cool country night, Western theme idea that they had last summer, and they kind of shot me a little picture of the mold, and they turned into reality, and it was pretty dang cool to see. And I have about 100 of them all over my house.
This is unbelievable. This is no, we're just gonna call it what it is. This is number one all time bobblehead. That's for damn sure.
So funny.
Chase, hey, thanks for, and I think we can, before we wrap it up, eBay.
Yeah,
get these
eBay. Yeah, hopefully I got a lot. So I mean,
get them now before they just skyrocket in value.
That's right.
Appreciate you. Thanks for coming on. Just two boys who had a dream, make it to the highest levels from SoCal, and we made it happen. So thanks for talking a lot about your story, and just all the best the rest of the way, your rest of your career. I have big things and big hopes for you. And we're all rooting for you. So appreciate the time. Any plugs?
No, just first off, thanks so much for having me. So much respect for you. And like I said, you're a trailblazer for me and the rest of the California kids. So I appreciate, you gave me that hope and gave me that dream. So I appreciate you. And just thanks for having me.
That's it. Thanks for tuning in for yet another episode of Etem Up. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, brother.